Hello, fourth grade. Today is Tuesday. I was about to say Monday. It's Tuesday. It's the first day back from your Easter holiday. I hope it was refreshing. I hope you guys got to hang out and do everything you wanted to do without having to worry about poetry in school and all of that stuff. And I hope I guess nobody really went anywhere, but um, I am I am speaking to you from the past because I'm recording this before. Oh, anyway, today we are going to go over the poems that we looked at last week for homework, and we're just going to talk about them and go over them so everybody has a chance to make sure that they understand what they read. Maybe I can cast a little insight. You never know. So we're going to go over the poems, and then I want to let you know that on Friday we're going to have a quiz. It's going to be very chill. It's multiple choice. It's just going to be on the poetry devices, the poetical devices, and the forms that we have learned. Nothing like sonnets or iambic pentameter or any of that stuff. That's all in the future. We're going to talk about alliteration and consonants and Ars Poetica and that sort of thing. And it's going to be multiple choice. Okay. It's really chill. Just think about the things that we've talked about. I will give you examples and say, this is an example of an ode or an Ars Poetica or free verse. Okay. And that's going to be, I don't know what it is. It's going to be easy, but that's next week. And we'll go over it, the terms beforehand. So your admit slip today is to tell me whether you like rhyming or unrhymed poetry better. Um, and just write 3 to 5 sentences on telling me why. If you like them both equally, then tell me you like them both equally and that they're both fabulous. It is up to you. So the three poems that we're going to talk about today, the William Carlos Williams poem about plums called "This Is Just to Say." The Ode to My Shoes by Francisco Alarcón, about the shoes under the bed. And if I'm butchering his last name, I'm so sorry. I butcher lots of words, English and otherwise. Perhaps the World Ends Here, Joy Harjo's poem about the importance of the kitchen table. Um, and I don't know if you guys liked or did not like that poem yet. I debated whether or not to give it to you because it's a pretty heavy poem. At least it is for me. You may not feel that way. You may have read it and it's been like, that is what it is. But it makes me very emotional, and it's one of the reasons. But I also think that there's some relevance today, which is the reason that I gave you the reading response about like how you think it has to do with where we are in our lives right now. So hopefully you will, you know, you enjoyed it. Hope I didn't mistakenly let you read it. So I'm going to read This Is Just to Say by William Carlos Williams. And then we're going to talk about all of these points. I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me. They were delicious, so sweet, and so cold. So I defined icebox for you. It's a refrigerator. I figured you probably understood that. The reason I didn't ask you to define it. Ice refrigerators used to be called an ice box because they would literally put ice in them and they would sit the food on top because they didn't have, the sort of the electric capabilities that they do nowadays. The speaker I put on here, he's a cheeky person who was up at night when the plums owner was not, therefore stealing the plums for a midnight snack. And that's pretty much what it's about. The theme is confession. This guy is confessing. From the moment that he starts to the very last word, he's pretty much saying, like, just so you know, I ate your food. And the form is free verse. This is, I believe, the first time that we've encountered a free verse poem. I don't know. It's been a long 2 weeks. Um, so no rhyme, no meter, no specific structure. It is all of the rules just kind of thrown out the window as far as like you can do whatever you want, right? And the plot is the person is up late and he wants a snack and he finds a stash of plums in the fridge and he eats them knowing that they fully belong to someone else, which is probably one of the reasons that they were so delicious. I don't know if you've ever stolen someone's piece of chocolate cake that you weren't supposed to, or, you know, taken something, taken some kind of food that you weren't supposed to take. It tends to be more delicious, and I'm not condoning this at home, but there's something about the forbiddenness of something you're not supposed to have. It makes it just tastier, and I think that might have something to do with his confession. I think he might be admitting to that as well. So, like I said, there's not any meter or rhyme in this poem, and the devices. I mean, it's a fairly simple poem. I mean, it has imagery, but this is a poem that is considered imagist, so that would be why. But we're hearing delicious and sweet and cold, um, and everything is based on the image of the plums, right? I mean, the plums, that's the subject. They're in the ice box. They were going to be for breakfast. They're cold. They're sweet. They're someone else's. I mean that the subject is the plum, the fruit. That's it. So he uses the image of that, and he talks about it in a way that we want to eat those plums. Several of you were like, "This poem made me hungry because I want plums. And plums are delicious." Or they just want because he describes it, and he doesn't even necessarily use those 25-cent words. I mean, he's just calling them sweet and cold. That's it. He didn't even have to go to a thesaurus for that. But there's something about the arrangement of these words. That's why I asked you guys to write a simple, startling poem where you're using words economically, but the ones that you use, you want them to be powerful. Um, they're just placed in just the right way that we want to eat these plums, and and if we don't necessarily even like plums, we understand why the poet wants to eat plums. So you can't really see my punctuation note down there, but he doesn't use any. I mean, he's got some capitalization in there. Very little. But he doesn't there's not a comma or period in any of that at all. But what does he use? One of the things we're gonna talk about we're gonna assess on our quiz, enjambment. It's a magical device. Because he's got it cut off there where, we don't see the sentence all the way to the end, all lined up together in a linear fashion. He cuts them off. And so I have eaten plums that were in the icebox, right? Bam, 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 bam. He kind of cuts them off. And if you've ever seen an old typewriter, um, I don't know if you guys have ever seen one of those, but when you get to a certain point, you hit the return and it goes ching and it comes back. I kind of like every time I think about enjambment, I think about that motion of like doing something and then putting and bringing it back. So every time someone does that, they're bringing you back to the next line in kind of a, it kind of, it can give a little bit of a um, hesitancy, but also uh, it can also be startling. Depends on the meter. Anyway, um, so the poem is about plums. The poem is about a confession. The poem is about this guy saying that he's sorry that he did it, but he's so not sorry. He's really not sorry. I mean, he enjoyed them. He's only sorry for the fact that this is obviously someone that he cares about, and he doesn't want them to go without their breakfast of really cold and delicious plums, but not enough that he's not going to eat it. So that's why I called him cheeky, because he's a little bit cheeky, isn't he? Oh, it is what it is. I was actually quite surprised at how many of you did not like this poem. I was, I, I actually was when the responses came in, I was like, oh, they don't really like this. I thought you would like it. It's fairly simple, but it still has a little bit of weight. It's kind of funny, but some of you did not like this poem, so that's all right. So, ode to my shoes. So we've got our ode example. You guys had to listen to me wax on about how my fan letter to odes last week. I appreciate you listening to me nerd out, you know. Um, but this poem is fairly simple as well, and that's not a bad thing. I think that poems don't necessarily all have to be like Archibald MacLeish's poem that have a million different interpretations or layers to peel back. I think sometimes they're just fun, or they're well worded, or they just give us a little bit of a moment in time. And this is a guy talking about his shoes, right? So, my shoes rest all night under my bed. Tired, they stretch and loosen their laces. Wide open, they fall asleep and dream of walking. They revisit the places they went to during the day and wake up cheerful, relaxed, so soft. So I know I got a little, I'm missing a T right there. Forgive me. So our speaker is obviously the owner of the shoes, and the theme, the celebration of the shoe, right? It's written in 1998, so it was not that long ago. And the form is an ode, and the plot is basically this guy praising his shoes, talking about how they're under the bed and they're dreaming about their day and where they went. And he's I know this is just about shoes, but he's also, I mean, when we think about it, he's writing a poem about something that's a tool that we use, right? I mean, if he didn't have shoes, it would probably be pretty terrible to run errands during the day, get in the car, drive to the bank, go to the doctor's office, go visit a friend, come home, and all the while your feet are probably going to be, hot in the summer, and you might step on something. And I mean, we've all gone without shoes and stepped on something. So shoes are tools that we use the same way that pen or my glasses, I mean, they're just inanimate objects, but they do stuff for us. So he's taking a moment to thank an inanimate object for doing something and giving it a little personality in the meantime. So he does not have any meter or rhyme. So we're looking at another free verse poem. And but he is using personification. The shoes, they dream, they fall asleep, they're cheerful, they're relaxed. Shoes aren't actually any of those things, where he's giving them human-like qualities. Um, and when he's doing so, he's also using imagery by talking about how they stretch and they loosen and they're wide open and they're soft. Because I mean, when they're tied around your feet, they're all together, and they're soft and relaxed when they're not doing their job, the same way you are, when you're not doing school, when you're not um, doing something official, you're relaxed and chilling and all that stuff. And it's personification and also some imagery. So he uses zero punctuation, just like the one before. But he also uses enjambment to make his rhythm, to make his point known. And it gives it a nice rhythm, the way that you can read it, the way he uses the enjambment. Um, and, you know, that's all I got for that one. Um, and I haven't heard yet if you guys like that one or not. So this is the poem that I debated on whether or not to give you. And I hope it wasn't too heady for any of you. I hope that you enjoyed it. Um, this poem came to me a couple of months ago, and someone shared it on social media, and I saw it and I was like, oh, I haven't thought about that poem in a long time. And I like Joy Harjo. She was the first Native American poet laureate for the United States. Wasn't too long ago. I don't remember. I think I have it written down on the biography perhaps, but I don't know. And when I read this poem again, it kind of got to me. Like, I got a little bit emotional when I read it, because it spoke to me in a way, because I have a family and they talk a lot about family in here, and I have a big family. Like, I have my core circle. I've got three kids and a stepdaughter who lives in Atlanta, and my husband and I, we're kind of a tight unit. And then outside of that, I have a bigger family that I grew up with that were very, very close. And when they talk about the world's being at the kitchen table, I've spent hours and hours and hours and hours at a kitchen table for various reasons, with friends and family, for various moments in time. And you kind of overlook, I mean, this could be the ode to the kitchen table. I mean, this is not considered an ode as far as, like, you know, I haven't, that just occurred to me. I didn't mean to give you an ode that wasn't an ode. I mean, perhaps it can be considered an ode because she's talking about the importance of that place. And it is a momentous place. It's a that's not the right term, but it's a place where a lot of stuff happens. And even though you have not been a person that has given childbirth or had a dead relative on the table, which is one of the lines in here, there are lines on here that probably do speak to you. You've been in that situation. Um, and I just think this poem is particularly poignant right now. All of us are sheltered in place in our house. Um, one of the things that we are allowed to do is go out and get groceries right now. And that's because no matter what, we must eat to live. That's what Joy says. It's kind of true, right? So we're just going to talk about this. I'm going to read it. I was going to get her to read it. I have a recording, but I'm just going to read it. And then we're going to talk about it briefly. Okay. So, Perhaps the World Ends Here by Joy Harjo. The world begins at a kitchen table. No matter what, we must eat to live. The gifts of earth are brought and prepared, set on the table. So it has been since creation, and it will go on. We chase chickens or dogs away from it. Babies teethe at the corners, they scrape their knees under it. It is here that children are given instruction on what it means to be human. We make men at it, we make women. At this table, we gossip, recall enemies, and the ghost of lovers. Our dreams drink coffee with us as they put their arms around our children. They laugh at us with our poor falling down selves as we put ourselves back together again at the table. This table has been a house in the rain, an umbrella in the sun. Wars have begun and ended at this table. It is a place to hide in the shadow of terror, a place to celebrate the terrible victory. We have given birth on this table and have prepared our parents for burial here. At this table, we sing with joy, with sorrow, we pray of suffering and remorse, we give thanks. Perhaps the world will end at the kitchen table, while we are laughing and crying, eating of the last sweet bite. I'm telling you, I really, really like this poem. I think that it is just really, it's really important. It's really well done. It makes me teary every time. Every time. What is that? And you guys may not feel the same connection that I do with it, and that's okay. Um, so it's a free verse poem. There's no rhyme or meter, but it's centered on the kitchen table, and according to her, that's where it all happens. So our first thing here is the world begins at the kitchen table. No matter what, we must eat to live. It's true. The gifts of the earth are brought and prepared, set on the table. So it has been since creation, and it will go on. Because just like she says, we must eat to live. It will not change that even in the middle of something as absolutely catastrophic as we are going through right now, we still have to eat. We can't eat. When people are grieving, when there's been terrible things that have happened, you know, people still have to stop and they have to put food in their mouths because they have to go on, even if they're dealing with something really terrible. So, she's pulling in the earthy element by talking about the gifts of the earth, right? So we take it from outside, even if I know our stuff comes from grocery stores, but inherently it comes from the earth and it's brought and prepared. Someone has to do something with it and it has to be set on the table. It's a ritual, it's a thing that we do. And this is, like, it's a universal idea that we chase chickens and dogs away from it. Dog, we're having dinner, go on. The babies are teething at the corners. The adults are all sitting around the table, and there's the baby on your knee. It's a heartwarming picture. And they get a little bit older, and they start scraping their knees under the table. We've all banged our knee on the kitchen table or random table. You know what that's like. There's just such wonderful universal stuff happening in this poem. And it is here that children are given instructions on what it means to be human. I bet if there is one person in this class that has gotten a dressing down at the kitchen table, may have done something wrong at school, he may have done something wrong to a sibling or to a parent. And, the one thing about being a parent is we have to have those really hard conversations with children like, hey, you can't do this. And I'm upset with you, not because I wanna be mad at you or because I don't like you, but because I have to help you learn what it is to be a person. And that varies from, 2-year-olds to 8-year-olds to 16-year-olds. Like we get instruction from parents. I've gotten instruction, you've gotten instruction. We all get instructions from the ones that love us, good and bad. At the kitchen table. It's just a place. It's where those conversations happen. And that's what, when they say we make men at it, we make women. She's saying like, you get those lessons and you grow up a little bit every time. And eventually you will turn around and you will find yourself an adult and you're the person giving the instruction. It's wild when that happens. Wild. And at this table we gossip, we recall enemies and the ghost of lovers. This is kind of the place where all I don't want to mean frivolous because nothing about these things are frivolous, but it's kind of the gossip, you're sharing the drama, like, that you have heard your parents talking some drama at the table, or you've shared it with your sibling and you're like, "Can you believe that that happened at school today? I know." And then recall enemies, just that person did this bad thing to me and you're talking about it. "Can you believe that person that used to pick on me in the 2nd grade?" Rawr, you know? And then the ghost of lovers. I mean, you think about the crush that you've had and all that sort of thing. I mean, someone may give you a ribbing because they found out you have a crush on somebody at school. The horror. So so this one is a little bit harder to understand as far as, like, what it's talking about. But our dreams drink coffee with us. I don't assume that any of you drink coffee, but your parents probably do. Your family does. Dreams drink coffee with us as they put their arms around our children. Everyone has dreams about what they wanna do, and they could be doing exactly what they wanna do as adults. Um, but whatever dream they had as a child, they don't accomplish all of them. There's always the ghost of a dream, right? There's always something that doesn't quite get done. And one of the things that derails dreams the most, I would say the most, but I don't know that that's true, our children. I mean, like you can have a grand plan and then all of a sudden you find yourself giving a lot of attention to your children and it may not come to fruition. And I don't even mean that in like the saddest way possible because, obviously the time and energy that people put into children, they want to put into children. But this is a little bit of that, like your dreams never leave you. Even if you're 85 and you wish that you'd become an astronaut, but you never became an astronaut, you still have that ghost of what you used to want to do, and it makes you who you are. And it always kind of follows you around in the back of your, I mean, just as the fiber of your being, who you are. So it's a nice image of like these things that you want to do, whether they came true or not, putting their arms around their children, and your dream may be to have children. So it could whether it's, like a career dream or an artistic dream or a family dream, the idea of the dreams drinking coffee with you and then arms around the children is just it's just so touching to me. And the dreams are laughing with them at the table when they're poor falling down selves as we put ourselves back up again at the table. That I picture falling down selves of like, laughing and or when you're not doing well, if you're falling down, you might not be doing so hot, but you have those those fall apart moments and then you also get yourself back together. And the dreams are there. Or they're there and is there like this apparition, this ghost that follows you around. Sorry for the hands, making you dizzy. Table's been a house in the rain, an umbrella in the sun. It's shelter. It's a place. We've got this, you know, it's this imagery and this personification of a table being something other than itself, um, because it's a safe place. But also, I mean, if you think about the next line, wars have begun and ended at this table. Think about the fights that family have had around tables. I mean, think about siblings squabbling at the table. Think about parents getting mad at their parents, and think about, I mean, family gatherings and holidays. You've probably seen just a little bit of a tiff at a kitchen table at a holiday celebration. They're not always perfect. Um, but it is a place to hide in the shadow of terror. If you've ever seen a movie where, or maybe you've experienced it in real life. I mean, I never assume what anyone has experienced, but when someone feels afraid, whether you've had a bad dream or you've had to escape a bad situation, or you've seen a movie where someone, you always see them sitting at the table, drinking a cup of tea, drinking a hot chocolate, um, being quiet, but being with those that are being, helping them feel safe. It's a place where you can go and sit and feel better and calm down. A place to celebrate the terrible victory. War is never a good thing. Um, but if you are victorious in whatever it is, um, you're still victorious. And sometimes you celebrate something that's hard fought, and that's where you do it. We have given birth on this table, and we've prepared our parents for burial here. I mean, this is an idea more today as a metaphor than it is actually in real life, because not many people give birth on a table anymore. Most of them are in the hospital, and if they're at home, they're generally in bed. They're not on the table. Um, but prepared our parents for burial here. I mean, that is a thing. Hold on a second. I'm trying to pause, and it won't let me pause. Here we go. Be right back. Terribly sorry about that. River decided to jump on the dog and got upset that she jumped on the dog. Can't make these things up. Um, so what I was saying about the birth on the table and prepared our parents for burial here, people in the country, I mean, I can tell you my grandparents who used to live in West Jefferson out near or out on the Warrior River. My grandparents were at funerals that took place in a house, and they would lay the dead out on the table, and they would that's what that's what you did. And that was it was just that, we didn't have a funeral home at that time. Um, so that doesn't necessarily apply to us these days, because I don't think anybody's setting up a dead body in their house. But it is, metaphorically speaking, it's where we make the arrangements, for people that have passed, and you may not give birth on the table because most people have other accommodations, um, but that's where all of the business of birth is discussed. And at this table, we sing with joy, with sorrow, we pray of suffering and remorse, we give thanks. I mean, think of all the prayers you've heard around the table for various reasons. Um, and the songs that you've heard. I mean, like, if you've ever been to a party, the party always ends up in the kitchen. It doesn't matter what kind of party it is. It doesn't matter if it's a celebration for a birthday or a holiday or just a get together. Everyone winds up in the kitchen, and it's because the food is there. But it's cozy in the kitchen. There's something really lovely about a gathering place in the kitchen. Perhaps the world will end at the table while we are laughing and crying, eating of the last sweet bite. And although this is talking about the end of the world, there's something very hopeful about it, because we'll be doing the thing that we love to do, which is hang out with our loved ones and eating that sweet bite of something that we love, that I'm sure is somebody's recipe from way back when, that you just can't, even though it's not good for you, you still make it. It's there's something so sweet about a place where we all gather and um, have the business of life happen. So um, I thought that this was particularly relevant to us at this point in time because we can't go anywhere. We're at home with our families. Hopefully, you were at home with your family. And I know that there are some people that if they're working in hospitals, the person that works in the hospital is staying away so they don't come in contact with the family, and that's very hard. Or some people are staying with their grandparents. And I hope that you are with your loved ones, and hopefully you are around the table. It just seems like a place where that's important to us now because we can't really go many places. We can go to the store to get the food that we come back and put on the table. So I hope that your moment with your loved ones around the table is a good one. And you can have your fights and you can have your disagreements and you have to do your homework at the table. But maybe you'll have some good memories there as well. Because we're certainly doing it for long enough, aren't we? Okay, so your exit slip, what has been your favorite form or groups of poems that we've explored so far? We've looked at some odes, we've looked at Ars Poetica, we've looked at the imagism poems, which were like Moon, Metro, the station, the Metro, and This Is Just to Say. And then we also looked at David McCord's rhymed poems, which is the one about the toad and the one about the books. So just tell me which grouping was your favorite and why. And then for your homework, we are going to explore a woman who would be sheltering in place with only herself, because she is Emily Dickinson, a hermit of a lady. So your homework is admit slips and exit slips, the ones I would just talk to you about. And then I have two Emily Dickinson poems on a sheet together. And I want you to, they're very short, so don't stress about that. It's not like I'm not giving you any more work than normal. Her poems are just that small. And so then also perform a learning log for Emily Dickinson. And we'll talk about her later. I think that's it. That's all I got. So I hope that you guys are getting back in the swing of things after Easter. And just hit me up if you have any questions. See you later. This computer is not responding.